Hello and thanks for joining us for the news update. 10 PNG government agencies and the Bank of Papua New Guinea have collaborated to enhance coordination and effectiveness of asset recovery and anti-money laundering efforts in the country. An anti-money laundering joint task force agreement was signed on Tuesday between these agencies to work together in this area. The formation of this task force is in response to an action list set by the Global Financial Action Task Force, placing PNG on a grey list. PNG Customs Commissioner David Towe explains implications of money laundering on PNG's economic growth.
It will affect foreign trade. It will affect even right down to us who take duty travel overseas and your credit card will be blacklisted and you won't. So that's how serious it is. Not just the country, but those of us who send the kids overseas to schools will also be impacted as well. So the impact of being grey-listed is serious, and that calls for action.
Midday Christmas operations, codenamed Sign Abe 2, received much-needed assistance from Modilon Fuel Station on Wednesday, 18th December. As part of its community service obligation, the fuel station provided 100 litres of fuel to all police vehicles that will be engaged in the operations. In total, 20 vehicles will be receiving 2 30-litre and 1 40-litre fuel voucher assigned to their respective number plates. Managing Director of Modilon Fuel Station, Jack Zeng, presented the vouchers at the Midday Town Police Station, stating that it was in their best interest to see to law and order empowerment so that their businesses are secured during the festive season. In a bold move to secure Papua New Guinea's energy future, Kumul Petroleum Holdings Limited has begun constructing a Jet A1 fuel import and storage facility at Motukea Wharf. The project, announced this week, aims to address the nation's fuel crisis and ensure long-term energy security. Here's more on this critical development. Kumul Petroleum's groundbreaking project, managed by China Petroleum Pipeline Engineering, features 4 large storage tanks, advanced loading systems, and stringent safety measures. This is part of a larger strategy to safeguard PNG's energy needs.
We have to build for the country. So it's a strategic asset we are building. Sometimes some decisions that we make is for strategic purposes. So we're basically doing our job, which is to support the country, provide energy security, and that's our mandate as well. So we're building a facility. It will be available for use July next year, thereabouts.
Song explained the innovative engineering solutions necessary to adapt the facility to an active international wharf, including a mobile loading system sourced from the Netherlands. The first phase is set to be completed by late 2025.
Octedi helped us bring in fuel, and we were able to supply fuel to Guinea. 2 nationally owned companies collaborating and providing a solution. But that is not a permanent solution. That is where Kumul Petroleum Holdings comes in. We will work together, and as the MD correctly said, this is an essential service, a strategic one. We just have to have our own facilities on standby.
With this bold step, KPHL aims to strengthen Papua New Guinea's energy resilience. We'll bring you updates as the project progresses. The first phase of infrastructure development at the Warman Livestock Station in Wewak East Sepik Province was officially reopened yesterday following years of abandonment due to concerns over cattle health. Warman, located on portion 126 along the West Coast Road in East Sepik, spans 68 hectares of state land under the Livestock Development Corporation, or LDC. In its prime, Warman housed a fully functioning abattoir that provided vital market facilities for livestock farmers in the East Sepik region. Livestock Minister Seki Agisa said the reopening of the station is in line with the Marpe Rosso government's focus on investing in agriculture and livestock in the country. As both major parties try to tackle cost of living in Western Australia with pre-election promises, it's clear that families are still being hit the hardest. A new cost of living report has revealed a dual-income family with 2 kids can't afford to make ends meet. Social services are once again asking whether the state government can and should be doing more.
Full time of year, but for families coming through the doors of Food Bank, it's a struggle.
This year, just hard, just ridiculously hard, yeah, especially from the price of food going up.
It looks like every week I come here, it feels like there's more and more people here, which is a bit distressing.
And yet another cost of living report highlighting the obvious: families need more help.
We're dealing with numbers that used to be close to about 10,000 a year, and now we're looking up towards the 13,000s. So there is no slowing down.
The WA Council of Social Service says for the financial year just gone, a dual-income West Australian family with 2 kids couldn't afford to make ends meet. 3 years ago, they were coming out ahead with $100 after paying weekly expenses. 2 years ago, they had just $45 to spare. Now, families are $53 over budget each week. That's including the government's payments for school-aged children.
The costs have gone up far higher than increases in income. In many cases, well over 11%, while the increase in income has only gone up 4%.
The government says it's doing all it can.
We know families are doing it tough. That's the reason why we have invested over $1 billion in the last 12 months alone on cost of living measures.
Social services are wanting more long-term measures when it comes to cost of living relief, not one-off sugar hits of electricity credits or free public transport. They say this is what will really make a difference for families doing it tough.
We've provided a list of solutions to the state government that could be targeted, like a cost of living package for those who are most in need, the school lunch programs.
Amid fears more people will slip below the poverty line.
The cost of living crisis is being partially blamed for escalating rates of crime across Victoria. Thefts have risen to their highest rate in close to a decade among more than 500,000 criminal incidents recorded in the year to September. Police say they are arresting more people than ever, but the stark figures have renewed calls for a change in approach.
Last month, thieves targeted homes on this quiet Bayside street. They entered Richard's property and stole 2 cars while his family slept.
The first that we heard of it was the police knocking at the door.
It was the second time his home had been targeted in the space of a year. The back-to-back thefts disrupting his life and leaving his family shaken.
And mentally, it hits the household as well. I mean, everyone's a little bit jumpy, a bit edgy. You don't sleep quite as well as you used to.
The rate of car thefts per 100,000 people has surged to an 8-year high, according to new crime statistics agency data. Nearly 26,000 vehicles were stolen over the 12 months to September.
And we know that the warmer months ahead are some of the peak periods we see for the theft of cars and also breaking into houses.
Stealing from cars was the most common offence, up 26%. That was followed by breaches of family violence orders, up 12%. Third on the list was other types of theft, like petrol theft, then criminal damage and stealing from shops.
When there are higher cost of living pressures, higher interest rates, that is directly linked to crime rates.
We are not doing our job as well as we should. We are not reducing crime to the extent that we could if we had those resources at the front line.
Youth crime also increased by more than 13% year on year, driven in part by repeat offenders.
It is so important that we make the connections, find those young people within their communities that are getting involved in repeat offending and then make the connection, teach them a different way.
Pressures mounting on the government to find a solution.
The state government has announced a 12-month trial of pill testing at music festivals starting early next year. It means people can bring illicit drugs to live events and have them checked for impurities. The Premier insists he's not condoning drug use, but has agreed to the plan in hopes it could save lives.
Season heating up, the government's been under pressure to reverse its stance against pill testing. The Premier concedes he was one of the least enthusiastic of his cabinet colleagues.
I was a sceptic going into it, but ultimately we all need to be led by the evidence. We need to be led by the facts as they're presented to government.
The Premier says the recent drug summit helped change his mind. Evidence presented from around Australia and the world that pill testing can change behaviour for the better.
So we know 10 to 20% of people throw away their pill after it's been tested. We know drug taking is moderated after it's been tested.
The 12-month trial will involve medical professionals who will be able to warn drug users about the potential dangers.
I can assure you, as a parent of a 14-year-old, illicit drugs scare the living hell out of me. But I'm also realistic.
The problem with pill testing, or a trial of pill testing, is it sends a message that normalises drug use.
19-year-old Alex Ross King died from an MDMA overdose in 2019. Her mother, Jenny, denies suggestions pill testing offers a green light for drug use.
It's actually not. It's a red light because they're actually stopping for a moment and thinking about what they're about to do.
The government says police patrolling festivals will steer clear of the drug testing tents and won't search those coming in or out or gather intelligence there. But the Premier says there'll be zero tolerance everywhere else. That means continued use of sniffer dogs and even strip searches, something critics say will be counterproductive.
You would think if you passed a line of police with sniffer dogs and one of your friends gets dragged off to be strip searched, you're probably not going to go and use the pill testing tent because of the attitude of police that day.
The Premier admits parts of the policy are contradictory, but he hopes the trial will save lives.
And our news update ends on that note. Do join us at 6 tonight for the main news bulletin.